Hey everybody, this is Matthew Soltesiak, and you're listening to Not the Same Old Lions podcast, part of the Minute Media Podcast Network. The Detroit Lions are now in a new, grittier era, and we look beyond just the kneecaps when it comes to the analysis. I speak with a variety of guests and interview key players, gaining more insight on what makes this team go. Welcome to another episode. In this episode, we preview the Detroit Lions' Week 5 matchup with the Cincinnati Bengals. Seems all Detroit is doing these days is playing teams from Ohio. Whether it's the Tigers playing the Guardians or the Lions playing the Browns, or this week, now it's the Bengals. We're going to hit on some major topics around the team. We'll hear from a reporter who follows Cincinnati, and we'll hear from another cat in Ohio that's gaining some popularity of his own these days. That and more. Let's get to it, Lions fans.
Hi, this is Billy Sims, and you listening to Not the Same Old Lions podcast.
Joining me today is Coach Jerry Angers, a former Michigan High School Coach of the Year. He was also named Coach of the Week by the Detroit Lions. He is the Scouting and Training Director for Bull Rush Sports. Coach, good to have you here.
Great to be here. Excited, as always, talking football.
For sure. And joining us back on the preview, he missed the preview last week because the man was on assignment. That is the Sports Writer of the Year for Community Newspaper Holdings Incorporated, senior sports writer for the Traverse City Record Eagle, James Cook. James, good to have you on this side of the lake a couple weeks in a row now.
Yeah, good to be back, both in Michigan and on the podcast.
For sure. And good to have your insights on the preview. We missed those on the last preview, but we'll get them here. The other thing we have is Roaster Jack Coffee Company, guys. They are out of Traverse City, Michigan, and since 1999, they have been roasting premium beans from small farms around the world. That means they're fresh to order just for you. And the only thing better than great coffee is great coffee with a discount. Visit roasterjack.com. If you use the code LIONS, it will get you 20% off your next shipment. Roaster Jack Coffee Company. Be a hero, brew great coffee, and go Lions. All right, guys, as we do, major storylines, any more reactions from last week? Not a whole lot more to talk about. I do want to talk about Kalif Raymond, though. And, you know, I had this thought before his punt return. I got to put that out there. Now, there's no proof of it. It was just in my mind. But you guys, when I saw Kalif Raymond back at kick return, and I think he took the ball away from the other returner to do the return and had a pretty good one, I was happy to see Kalif back there, James, because he's got some speed. They've tried some different things back there. They've tried Grant Stewart with the bigger size, but I want to see Kalif Raymond staying back at kick return. I like what he brings to it, his veteran status as well as his speed, and his fearlessness, which was what he displayed on the punt return. Any thoughts you had on Kalif being back there for the kick return game as well?
Yeah, he's a huge bonus there. I mean, he's such a threat. I mean, we saw how much last year he just completely changed that Tennessee game. I mean, turned it from an even game maybe, or even-ish game, to just a total blowout with just his returns. And Dorsey was in on that too. So getting Dorsey healthy would be another boost to that special teams unit.
For sure. And again, a guy that we've had, do it. We know what he can do. And so I like him being back there. I like the speed. And again, they're still trying to figure things out on special teams with the return game. But, we thought maybe they're going to go bigger and powerful. But maybe that elusiveness is still a necessity, even with this new changeup, Coach. I know it's still a work in progress. It's only early into the second year from it. Any takeaways you have on the return game from the kick return status from what you've seen so far?
Well, I think just like Coach Campbell said, Kalif is wired different. And I think Anzalone said something to Campbell on the sidelines when he went through it. And, guys that have no fear. I used to have a T-shirt made up on guys for special team. And it was, I didn't have to make it up. I think Walt Michaels said it years ago. But a man who has no fear either belongs in a mental institution or on special teams. Well, that's Kalif Raymond.
All right. Special teams it is. And he's obviously contributing on offense as well, but you're exactly right. A star on special teams too for Kalif Raymond.
Mm-hmm.
You guys, I did not realize this until I was perusing social media, because that's where we seem to learn everything these days. This Sunday, Jared Goff will have played more games for the Detroit Lions than for the Rams. He is currently 42-26-1 as a Detroit Lion. He was 42-27 as a Los Angeles Ram. So kind of crazy how similar those numbers are, Coach.
Mhm.
It's also kind of cool that he is now entering that stratosphere of he's a Detroit Lion, not an LA Ram, and his career numbers are showing that. So any takeaways, any thoughts on Goff hitting that part of his journey, I guess, because we know he's in his prime, as many would say.
Well, he was thrown away and wasn't going to be anything, and he was supposed to come to Detroit and die. Well, he hasn't, and I'm so glad he's got more games in the Lion uniform, and I know there's many more to come.
James, how about some of your insights on that number for Goff?
And he's got one less loss as a Lion. So that one tie in that season where they went, 3-13-1 is the only difference.
Yeah.
So, but I mean, you take off that horrible first year when they were just completely rebuilding around him, and his record has been pretty remarkable.
Mhm.
Well, for sure. And if you look at his record versus his old team, that first year when it was totally horrible, rebuilding, they actually fought pretty hard in that loss, and all they've done against the Rams since then is beat them. And so they'll have another opportunity to play this year, and we'll see how that goes. But, yeah, Jared Goff is going to play game number 70 as a Detroit Lion this Sunday. All right, well, let's move over to injury report and transactions. A lot going on here. They did not practice for Wednesday. You've got linebacker Zach Cunningham, hamstring. Taylor Decker, shoulder. He often does take time off. They've talked about that as well. Khalil Dorsey, concussion protocol. Kirby Joseph, knee. DJ Reed, hamstring, and he was put on IR. We'll look at that. And Sione Vaki, groin. Limited practice. Limited. Terrion Arnold. So there's something. And Aleem McNeil. You did not hear that incorrectly. That is true. Aleem McNeil was practicing today. That window has been started. Still no timeline on return for Josh Paschal or Miles Frazier. Transactions. DJ Reed was put on injured reserve. They signed Lauren Strickland and Ty Summers, a linebacker, to the active roster from the practice squad. And Trey Flowers, no, not that Trey Flowers, another Trey Flowers, has been signed at defensive back. That'd be incredible if they signed that Trey Flowers to play defensive back at this point. But not only that, Coach, we got Nick Whiteside on the practice squad. So we got a lot of great stuff going here. James, get us started. What's jumping out to you on the injury reports, the transactions? What's going on with all this stuff?
Well, they're adding some depth at corner, obviously, with the concerns to their top two starters. Flowers is pretty good depth. He's, a little long in the tooth for a cornerback at age 30, but he's a big corner too. Played for Seattle, and we know how Seattle in the Legion of Doom days loved their big cornerbacks. So he fits that mold. Has kind of bounced around a little bit, but he's still a veteran and knows what he's doing. So I think he'll be somebody that they may, if Arnold can't go this week, somebody that they may elevate from the practice squad as one of their elevations. I mean, Reed's on injured reserve, so he's out for a minimum of 4 weeks. If you sign Flowers to the practice squad, you can elevate him 3 times. So 3 of the 4 weeks, they have a body at corner that they can replace Reed with.
All right. And, then they got Nick Whiteside on the practice squad who was with them all camp, but they got a couple guys brought in right away. And we knew they were going to do that. Coach, some of your thoughts on the practice guys or the transactions here as we continue to go through this?
Well, it's great. And again, you have to bring guys into practice too, and that's, the big thing, but bringing guys back. Nick's a good one to come back because he already knows what what's expected of him. And he had a great camp. And so that's totally awesome. And then, having a bigger corner, 6'3", to see if he even is elevated. And so we'll see. It'll be interesting to see how they do that. But we also don't forget, we still got Maddox that's already been up that can play corner. And the Lions are just making sure the practice facilities are full so they can run good practices.
For sure. And again, we're expecting Rock Ya-Sin to get a number of snaps out there along with Amik. I mean, those are your 2 guys that I think we're all focused on that are going to step in. Depending on what happens with Terrion Arnold, whether they play him this week or not, if he's eligible to. I mean, he's eligible, but if he's healthy enough to play. But the Aleem McNeil guys, I mean, big news, big guy. I heard they played Return of the Mac at practice when he came out to practice on social media. I have not confirmed it, but that's what I heard. James, this is a couple weeks ahead of schedule, we thought, for opening of the window. I mean, it doesn't mean he's going to play before the bye week. He still could be on pace to play that first game after the bye. But the fact that he's out there moving is extremely encouraging.
Yeah, it is. I imagine it'll take them. They'll slow play it a little bit. I mean, he's going to take a couple weeks to get back into conditioning, all that stuff. Get it. So I wouldn't expect him for probably 3 weeks or so. Even after the thing. But great sign. I mean, Tyleik Williams has played well this season. DJ Reader has played very well this season. You throw Malik McNeil in that, and you could just rotate those three in with Lopez. So the defensive tackle spot right now looks rock solid.
Yeah, Coach, any thoughts on Malik McNeil practicing, and or even the fact that Terrion Arnold's actually out there practicing, limited at least? That's at least encouraging that even if he can't go this week, it looks like it should be a pretty quick thing.
Yeah, it's awesome with that. I mean, that was a good one to see. And McNeil, Coach Campbell said he feared for the guys that had to block him today because he's been wound up about doing that. And it gives you a boost to your team too when you see one of your dogs that comes back. It's an energy factor too. The team sees him come out and they're like, oh my God, how hard did he work to get to this point at ahead of pace. And so it's good, but baby steps with him. Just keep winning, and when he comes back, it'll be a pretty scary front.
All right, well, let's touch on the division. Little shakeup since last week. There is a team alone at the top of the NFC North. It's only after 4 weeks, folks. It doesn't matter right now. Coach will tell you that. Nobody wins anything in September. It is the beginning of October. Nobody even wins anything in October. But the Lions are 3-1. The Packers are 2-1-1 after, I don't even know what you call the end of that game on Sunday Night Football between the Packers and the Cowboys. The Vikings and the Bears both sit at 2-2. So nobody in the division has a losing record. The Vikings are still overseas this week where they will face the Cleveland Browns. Packers and Bears get that early season bye. James, quick thoughts and shots on the division.
I thought the end of that game was glorious. I thought it was just funny that the Micah Parsons trade was the complete talk of the whole thing, and then at the end of the week, neither of them wins.
It was almost poetic, really, the way that whole thing went down. It could not have been scripted any better. It's like, it's two teams I didn't want to root for either one. And the Micah Parsons thing, I think, they actually said after the game, he did get a sack credited when Dak didn't gain a yard. And I'm like, it was like no gain. And then you look at the one he got on Jared Goff, which was so late in the game, and it was kind of just a garbage time sack. And I'm like, well, that's two sacks he'll have on his stat sheet. But yeah.
The stats look okay, but I mean, I did a radio appearance a couple of weeks ago right after the trade was happening. They asked me about it, and I was like, I don't know, this is a trade where I could see it almost being a lose-lose scenario because it's going to cost the Packers so much money, so much draft capital. It had to have hurt the Cowboys locker room, trading a guy like that, refusing to pay one of your own guys, like what the Lions do when they draft a guy and he plays well, they pay him. And the Cowboys refusing to do that has got to be a big hit on the locker room.
Well, and looking at the rest of the division yet, we know J.J. McCarthy will be coming back from injury. And so they're a work in progress there in Minnesota. And the Bears have won 2 in a row now after starting 0-2 under Ben Johnson. So, again, nobody with a losing record in the division. Coach, you're probably going to tell me it's looking the way we thought it would, but any other thoughts on the division before we move on?
No, I just think, it's where it should be after the first quarter. And, we just got to keep taking care of business. And I know you pointed out the fact about all the North teams. And it's just nice playing all of them early because now we know where we stand going into the rest of the games.
All right. Well, folks, now before we get to our preview section of the upcoming game, we've got a couple special guests, and it goes well with one of the themes for this week's game, cats. The Detroit Lions get ready to take on the Cincinnati Bengals this weekend, so we thought it would be fun to stay in the theme and check in with another cat from Ohio. Joining us today is George Carlson, the long snapper for Bowling Green State University, and Pudge, his 3-year-old exotic short-haired Persian cat. George and Pudge, thank you both for taking the time to join us on the show today.
Thank you for having me on.
George, for anyone that hasn't heard the story, a little while back, you felt the team needed a little bit of a lift. So you brought Pudge with you into the locker room. Is that correct? Can you tell us a little bit about how that came to be and what that looked like?
Yeah, totally. We had a player go down in the practice before. It was a scrimmage day, and we had to end practice early. And since we kind of had animals in and out of the locker room before every now and again, I thought, it's an off day. We've switched the off days up since the last coaching staff, so it's kind of more of a free day. And I thought, it would be kind of funny if I brought my cat in and just sat him in the locker room. I thought it'd be good. I thought it would put some smiles on guys' faces. So I did it, and the rest is history.
That's great.
Nice.
That's awesome. I was thinking I wanted to throw this at you. The last few years of my teaching, I retired a couple of years ago. We'd have the police department bring in one of their dogs, and they walk around. A teacher might bring a dog in. We had a dog trick assembly. These dogs come in, did all these things, and I just remember watching the amazing smiles and the attitudes of the kids. During that day, whether it was in the hallway or in a classroom or at the assembly. Do you feel that does the same thing for your players after practice? By coming in the
Yeah,
locker room and seeing Pudge?
definitely. I think, there are a lot of reactions. Some people, aren't probably the biggest fans of cats, so they just walk by, totally fine. I didn't bring him in for everybody to love him. I just, for the few that came over and, saw him, petted him, hung out, it really did impact them in a positive way. And I think it's great for the team.
That's great.
Awesome. Well, you said the rest is history, and not everybody might understand what that is, but your teammate, wide receiver Finn Hogan, made a TikTok video, and that kind of caught things on. And then not just the entire football team, but the entire community at Bowling Green is now behind Pudge. What are some of the things that have been going on with the team in the community?
Basically, everyone's just wrapped around it. They're super excited to have Pudge around. Every time I bring him to campus for either pictures or different sorts of content that I'm going to make with the university, there's like a swarm of people that come up. I know I was doing some pictures the other day, and I was there for maybe 5 minutes until people started noticing. And then there were probably a group of 20 people just waiting until we finished up to take pictures with Pudge. So they've really embraced it. They love it. The fans love him. And I'm super excited. I couldn't be more stoked for it.
That's awesome. Has Pudge met Finn's dog yet?
Pudge hasn't met Finn's dog yet. He's met Finn though plenty of times.
Yeah, I'm sure about that. Well, the dog's probably a little bit better than Finn, but we won't go into that. Hey, anyways, one thing I heard College Game Day was doing a story on Pudge, and Finn had told me about that. So I was thinking to myself, how cool would that have been to have Lee Corso put a Pudge hat on to pick the winner of the I-75 game in a week and a half?
Oh, that would have been so sick. I think it would have been amazing.
Yeah,
Oh my goodness.
yeah, that'd have been cool.
Well, you've mentioned that everybody's been, getting into this and being behind this. I heard even new head coach Eddie George has gotten into it. What's it been like for the coach embracing this for you guys, and what's that meant?
It's been amazing. Not a lot of coaches would probably embrace it. And even today he was talking about how, the old school coaches probably would be like, what is this cat doing in here? Get it out of here. I want to be disciplined. We need to be perfect, and we can't have these animals getting in our way. Um, but now I think he's really embraced it. His wife loves Pudge, so I think that probably had something to do with it too. But you know, he is totally fine with Pudge. He loves doing different interviews for Pudge. He's been before me when I've done the interviews, and he's always just loved to do it. He's a great man. I'm happy that he's really embraced the cat, because I know a lot of people might not have.
That's awesome.
It really is, yeah, and I think that that's one of the things you talk about too is the old school coaches would, oh, you guys aren't tough. Oh my God, you got a cat laying around. But, we know that mental health issues and stuff like that have been issues, and it's stressful being a college athlete. And I just think that's awesome that you did that. What a way to break the ice up, George. I mean, for you guys to come with that. And then of course the community taking over. But hey, I got a question. Does Pudge have a favorite? I know he's got a favorite college team. It would be the Falcons, Bowling Green Pudge Falcons, I think they would be called. Does Pudge have a favorite NFL team?
At this point, I don't know. I like the Indianapolis Colts, but I think Pudge is still looking for a team, and the Lions would be a good one. I think that would be, that's the area that you're close, and the Lions also commented on one of his videos, so plus points to them. So I think the Lions would definitely be his team for sure.
Yeah, that's great because I had just read something on social media, because anything on social media is true. But it said that Pudge made a statement and told everybody that when he grows up, he wanted to be a Lion. So I mean, that's it.
Yeah, totally. I agree with that.
Awesome. George, any way we can get a good glimpse of Pudge?
Yeah, he jumped out of my hands here just a second ago because he can't sit still. But can grab him here. This is Pudge.
Oh,
he's just hanging out. He's too busy with his food.
The calm, and I've seen some of the things Bowling Green State's put together, and I'm just like, that is the calmest cat I've ever seen.
Oh yeah, he just, the breed is very docile. They don't do a lot. They're basically just a lazy house cat. That's the most they do. They're not bred for, ability to go catch mice. They're bred for looks, and for shows, which is amazing because for me, it's really easy as a football player to take care of him because, we go on the road and everything. Now he's with me, obviously, half the time when we go on the road, but they're very easy cats to take care of, and I think Pudge is another testament to that. He just lays down and eats, and it's about all he does, honestly.
Which is normal. Sorry, which is normal. Cats do that. One quick question.
Oh, yeah.
Does he ever jump out of the carrying case that they have at the game and you have to worry about it, or does he just hang out in that case that they have at the games? Or you probably don't know because you're worried about long snapping.
Oh yeah, I was kind of worried about that at first, but apparently he doesn't. We have my dad's out there. He's a veterinarian, and he'll kind of walk around with the AD of marketing at the school, Taylor Jefferson, and they'll walk him around. But no, he really loves that bag. He doesn't try to jump out. He just honestly sleeps in there. And they bought him a fan, so now he even has a fan in his bag, which is kind of funny.
Oh, that's great.
That is incredible. And you said the AD of marketing. I mean, so much has already happened. What are some of the things that you guys are working on, or what's next in store for you guys in Pudge that you can share?
A lot of social media is really coming to light. I think more content, more videos there, that's going to be a big thing. But as well, more merchandise. We're looking, I already have 2 shirts right now, which one of them is through Influxer, which is an NIL brand, and the other one is through a local t-shirt company here that makes them, and then the proceeds go to Wood County Humane Society, which I thought was really sweet. And the guy set it up, so he made it really easy for me to be able to make that happen, which I'm happy about. But I just heard today that the bookstore is also going to try to put shirts in the stores there for students to get. So I'm happy to get that to students as well, especially, anything that I can get to the students for an affordable price will be great.
Awesome.
That's great, George. Thank you. A big thank you to you and Pudge for joining us today. We wish you both well as you guys continue to prepare to play Toledo and the Battle of I-75 coming up here soon.
Thank you.
Nice meeting you, George. Tell Finn we said hello, and tell Pudge we're in love with him too.
Oh, for sure. Yes, I'll let him know. And I'm just happy to come on as well.
See you, Pudge.
Once again, thank you to George and Pudge for joining us to talk Cats and Lions. It was great having them on. And now, guys, it's time for us to preview the upcoming Bengals game. And we're going to start by hearing from someone who covers the team in Cincinnati. Joining me today is Yanni Tragelis. He's the sports anchor for Local 12, the CBS affiliate out of Cincinnati, Ohio. Yanni, thanks for taking time to talk Lions and Bengals football with me today.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for having me on. Excited for a good one this weekend, hopefully.
We sure hope so. You know, this was circled on the schedule as soon as the schedule came out by a lot of people. We do know the Bengals are not the same team, though, since losing Joe Burrow in week 2 against Jacksonville. The Bengals are 0-2 since then with a couple lopsided losses, but sitting at 2-2, they are in second place in the AFC North right now. What's the overview of the team at this point as they're adjusting to the loss of Joe Burrow and trying to figure some things out?
Yeah, I mean, like you said, they're reeling right now. Ever since Joe Burrow's injury, it was tough sledding before. Honestly, I mean, they started off the year 2-0, won that second game after Burrow went down, but things still didn't really look the same, especially on offense, as they did last year. They were struggling to run the ball even when he was in, didn't have very good protection, and that's only been sort of magnified now since he's gone out. I mean, the game on Monday night against Denver, that was, you're obviously hoping for a bounce back after a game where you got punched in the mouth against Minnesota, and it really ended very quickly. And it was an ugly game. It was a sloppy game. Anytime you have more penalties than first downs, that's not going to be a recipe for success. So bringing in the Lions now next week with that offense, it's going to be, I mean, if there's any time to save the season, maybe not even win the game, but at least put together somewhat of a performance, this is the week to do it for the Bengals.
All right. Well, again, I don't pay too much attention to the spreads because we've seen teams 0-3 beat 3-0 teams as recently as last week. That said, I watched the Monday night game as well. We do know the Bengals have some work cut out for them. But help me understand the team a little bit better here. It all starts with the offensive line. That impacts the ground game. That impacts the air attack. What is the offensive line looking like for the Bengals right now?
So it's a little bit of they've had some injuries to their right guard. Dalton Reisner went down in week 3, I should say. Sorry. And so in week 4 against Denver, started 2 rookie guards. I believe that was the first time since 1996 the Bengals have started rookie guards on the offensive line. And I mean, you could see it that they're rookies. There's a lot of, I mean, if you're watching most of these plays, and there was one play of a sack of Jake Browning where ESPN did the overhead view of it in the replay, and you had 2 guys coming in essentially unblocked on the tackles, and the 2 guards collapsed in. Now, they're not going to help on the outside edge rushers, but it almost describes the state of what's going on with that right now. And really, it's a lot going on with that line. And you're seeing that with Chase Brown's running game, really no room to run. He actually had a better rushing attack on Monday, was averaging 4 yards a carry, got his numbers up to 2.3 yards per carry for the season. But man, it's been tough sledding for this team so far. And, with the 2 rookie guards, I think that sets you back from the start, and it's been tough so far.
All right. Well, coming in, I think a lot of people were expecting the Bengals to rely on that offense to carry this team, to be able to keep up with the scores, and they expected that to be the strength. Now, Jamar Chase, T. Higgins, Noah Fant, they're still there among others, as is Chase Brown. Do you see the Bengals making any adjustments on the offensive side with Jake Browning in there to maybe change their plan of attack or how they do some things?
Yeah, so one thing that Zach Taylor has said ever since Joe went down is that Jake is similar to Joe in that he likes the same play calls for the most part. And he said to the average person, you're not really going to see much different in terms of how the offense runs. I think at this point in time, after two games of struggling, I think you have to change it. Now, I don't really know. Do you go back to sort of a spread out formation? They've been running a lot of 12 personnel and things like that. They've had tight ends on the field. I don't know that works well with Joe Burrow because, he can move around and he can find a tight end late in the play if he doesn't find a Jamar Chase deep. But I don't know if maybe with someone like Jake Browning, you just stick 4 receivers out on the field for him and say, spread it out, spread offense, almost like it's back in college for him where he was so great and just operate like that. Maybe that might have to be a change for him. But yeah, I'm not really seeing how this offense can keep operating the way that they have been.
Well, and that's an interesting potential idea because you may or may not know the Lions are going to be without their top two defensive backs this week. Both got injured. Both are not going to play this week. Is that one idea that the Bengals could maybe try and do to try to attack that area that we know the Lions are going to have some backup starting?
I think that could be a big case for them. They've really struggled. Jamar Chase has been quiet. T. Higgins, he had a couple of receptions early in that game, and it seemed like, oh, here comes another T. Higgins game like he had last year against Denver in that, I believe it was Sunday night football at that time, or maybe Saturday night football late in the season. But the offense just never got going. So I think if you can bring out 3-4 receivers, get an Andre Yosibach some targets, get a Mitch Tinsley, an undrafted guy who's impressed, some more targets, and that could ultimately open up a Jamar Chase going up against a backup corner later on in the game and be able to open it up. But it all comes down to, I think, the offensive line, and if Jake Browning doesn't have time to do that, it's not going to be pretty for him.
Right. Well, and I did watch, most of that Monday night game, and that first drive by the Bengals was pretty solid. And like you said, Chase Brown did average 4 yards a carry, his best on the season. And, just a year ago, he had almost 1,000 yards rushing, averaging about 4 yards a carry. What were the Bengals doing well in that first drive, or what's it going to take to get Chase Brown involved? Because it seems like they're going to need him involved if they're going to want to have a chance in this game.
Yeah, I think the one thing with him is he's was able to cut back a couple of times on that first drive. You saw a run where it was going to the right a little bit, and he had a nice little bounce back lane to the left. So I think it was something more of that. And I think in other games, like with Minnesota, they were bringing safeties into the box, and they would close that up on the back end and didn't allow him to get anywhere. So I think it was more so that allowed him to boost those numbers up. I don't really know. It seemed like there were still some missed blocks from that point and things like that. So I think it was a lot more of outside of the script of the play, allowing him to gain some yards. There was still really looking at it, some tough running lanes for him to try to get through.
All right, well, let's flip it over to the defensive side. The Bengals defense is third in yards allowed and third in passing yards allowed. But can you take me beyond the numbers and explain the defensive struggles, what they seem to be? And then on the flip side, what are they doing well? Because there's one guy, Trey Hendrickson, that, all Lions fans are very much aware of, and we know how talented he is. And, so take me into the defense and talk to me a little bit about that.
So it's funny. I would say the numbers, they don't look good with the defense, but I think the defense is better than what the numbers would say. And I think a lot of that is, if you go back to the offense, they're going 3 and out a lot right now, and they're getting off the field quick, and that's causing the defense to tire. But I do think it's a better defensive group. I don't think by any means it's a top in the league defense. But going into the season, my assumption and my prediction and what I thought I was going to see was a middle of the pack defense that would be finally good enough to get the Bengals over the hump and into the postseason and competing. So I do think they're a good group. They still have in the secondary still a lot of concerns with their cornerbacks in a Cam Taylor-Britt and a Josh Newton. How will they hold up against a Lions offensive attack? That could open them up for sure. I think the strongest part of this defense is their linebackers, and they have a rookie linebacker that they took in the second round in Demetrius Knight in this past draft, and he had his first interception on Monday night, but he has just been all over the field through the first 4 games of the season. I mean, any play that you watch, 44 is right there. I think he's going to be a player that's going to be at the top of the league in terms of linebackers for a long time in the NFL. And, it was a position of need. They really struggled over there last year, so they went out and drafted this guy, a 25-year-old, 6th-year senior that they could just plug right in, and he's worked out. So I think that would be one thing to watch, other than Trey Hendrickson, of course. Demetrius Knight, he's going to do some things in that game, but it's all going to come down to those corners and how they match up with the Lions receivers. And, yeah.
All right. Well, if Cincinnati is going to win this game, what's it going to take from the Bengals?
Well, it's going to take a lot. They've been outscored 76-13 in the last two games. So I think I saw you had mentioned that you don't look at the spreads too much. I think I saw it was a 10-point spread going into this one. That was a little low for what I thought. I thought it would be a little bit higher than that after what's happened. But I mean, for what it's going to take, Jake Browning is going to have to throw for 250 yards plus. I mean, you can't have another performance like on Monday night where he was, I think, under 100 up until like late in the fourth quarter when he finally got over that. I mean, you need to be a competent NFL offense to be able to compete with the Lions because, I mean, we know that they're gonna. We know that you guys are going to score points. That's for sure. It's going to be, you're not going to beat the Lions 13-10. You're going to need to put up 25 plus to do so.
All right. Well, then let's put it the other direction. If the Lions are going to leave Paycor Stadium with a win, what do they need to do against the Bengals to make sure they're successful?
Well, I think the number one thing would be just do what the Lions do. I mean, they have the trickery. They could confuse you. They can go over the top on you. They can run it with Montgomery and Gibbs. And so I think if the Lions are just the Lions and play their game plan, I think it could be a win for the Lions for sure. I think if anything's going to happen, it's going to have to be the Bengals doing things for that. I wanted to know what do you think Lions have to do?
I think just establish the run, take care of the run, and eat up the clock, run time of possession. I mean, play Lions football. You said it, right? If they do those things, avoid the turnovers, the real basic things, and try and get some pressure. Keep the run game in check because they going to want to make the Bengals as much one-dimensional as possible because they're going to have to get pressure on Browning, I feel, because we are going to have two defensive backs out there that are not our starters. And so there will be a little bit more pressure on the Lions secondary. So the more you can keep the defense off the field and the more you can get pressure on the Bengals quarterback and running game, the better it's going to be for the Lions.
Good to know. We're going to have to, I think it should be a good one. I feel like with some of the things I've said, I might be expecting a blowout game. I do think the Bengals will be able to keep it to a little bit of a closer score than what it's been the last 2 weeks. But ultimately, I will say I do see the Lions getting this win on Sunday.
Well, and like you said, the defense is better than the numbers from what you've seen. And so that's why they go out and play the game.
Absolutely.
Yanni, any final thoughts or last comments before we get out of here?
No, just want to say thank you for having me on. Can't wait to see the Lions come in. I mean, they're one of the most exciting teams to watch. I've really enjoyed, their come up the last couple of years. And, if it can't be the Bengals winning a Super Bowl, would love to see Detroit getting one.
Awesome. Well, we appreciate that as well. Thanks again so much for joining me today, Yanni.
Thanks.
Great insights about the Bengals from Yanni. Awesome getting his perspective and understanding a little bit more of the inner workings of the team. So now let's take a look at it from our perspective. And guys, I just was kind of looking at things and I noticed a pattern. Do you realize it's week 5 and the only teams we have ever played, including this coming week, is a North team? We opened the season against 2 NFC North opponents, and this will be our 3rd straight AFC North opponent. I'm sure it's just, by chance and a weird quirk in scheduling, but I just kind of thought that was an interesting pattern.
Easy way to schedule or something. Who knows?
Yeah, all you need to do is add Pittsburgh and Minnesota, and we would have hit every North team already. Yeah. But that'll be later. So, Cincinnati Bengals, team without Joe Burrow at this point. What are we making of this team, James? Let's start with you. What are some of your thoughts?
Well, one interesting thing about the Cats, to go back to the Cats thing, is that there's a couple of breweries. There's a couple of breweries, one from Detroit, Griffin Claw, and one from Cincinnati called Streetside that brewed a special beer just for this game called Big Cat Energy.
Right.
And they're selling it at a brewery down in downtown Cincinnati before the game. So just another cat addendum since we're going full cat.
We appreciate that. That's great insight there.
I mean, as far as the Bengals, those cats, they look like completely different cats without Joe Burrow. They, I mean, they're the largest underdog in the NFL this week at 9.5 at home. To be a 9.5 point underdog at home is just kind of crazy. And I did my normal stalking Cincinnati message boards, and man, their fans are wanting big changes. They want the coaches gone, they want the GM gone, they want the pretty much the entire offensive line gone, and a lot of the defense. They think with Burrow, Chase, and Higgins that they should be able to attract top coaching talent, which is something they haven't been able to do previously. So they want to see some of those changes. But the 2025 Bengals is kind of what you get when you don't address the most glaring need in your team in any meaningful way. Their offensive line was bad last year, and they didn't sign anybody in free agency to help there. They did draft guys in the third and fifth rounds, and then went defense pretty much all the rest of the way, which their defense needed it as well. But their third round pick, Dylan Fairchild, is starting at left guard, and their fifth round pick is his backup.
Yeah, that's a lot of new spots on the line there. They're hoping to contribute right away, and yeah, even that first game of the season with Joe Burrow, and into the second, things weren't running super smoothly for the Bengals team, and so you've hit the nail on the head. I mean, even after speaking with Yanni, you can tell that the vibe over there is exactly the way James laid it out, Coach. And so it's a team that is an underdog for a reason, but obviously every player there is fighting as hard as they can and working as hard as they can. What's your take on the Bengals right now, though, as far as they're in a transition period as well, because they're transitioning to what does life look like without Joe Burrow the rest of the season, and they're only a couple games into that. So maybe they're making some adjustments on the offensive side and how they're going to handle some things coaching-wise.
Oh, there's no doubt. I mean, there's not much difference between what they were this year as what they were last year, other than they started out faster this year. Last year they started out slow and then had that big run at the end and couldn't get in. This year they started out 2-0 and then Burrow got hurt and now they're scrambling. But they got some dogs on that team. And this is a game that's scary because you start reading all the we're number one in this, they're number 30 in that. We're number one in offense, they're number 30 in defense. We're and you go on and on. And so, Brownie's gonna have to try to figure out how they can get the ball to Chase and Higgins. But going back to their drafts, going back to how they handled Hendrickson, going back to how much money they spent on their two wide receivers last year. I think one of their wide receivers was drafted over to some offensive lineman in the same year draft. That was pretty good. Turned out to be a pretty good offensive lineman. I'm not sure who that guy is, but I think he plays for the Lions. And so, it's kind of the same, the same old story for the Bengals. Problem is this is the NFL, and this is one of those teams that you got to really, really, really worry about because last year there was a 3-0 team that lost to an 0-3 team. So, those are just things. But they're scrambling. They got to figure out what they're going to be able to do without Joe Burrow. But then you look at them on paper and offensively, it's a pretty scary unit. Other than the offensive line is horrific, and maybe they just better start throwing a whole bunch of screenplays, and hopefully Chase and Higgins and Brown take them to the house.
Well, that's going to be the thing, right? What are we expecting out of Cincinnati this week against the Lions? The Bengals looked really good on that opening drive against the Broncos, but they still couldn't get the ball in the end zone on that drive. And Chase Brown did average about 4 yards a carry exactly, which was his best on the season. But that's about all the good I saw out of them on Monday night as they're getting ready now to come in on a short week at home to play the Lions. The Bengals are at home, but they're on a short week playing the Lions after that game in Denver. James, I mean, the last week's game explains why the spread's 9.5 or whatever it's at right now. What are you expecting out of Cincinnati coming to play Detroit, or the Lions going to play Cincinnati?
Well, I mean, the last couple of weeks since Burrow got hurt, they've looked like the Bungles, the old Bungles. How they used to call them that on ESPN. I mean, last week they were called for 11 penalties against Denver, 11
Wow.
in one game. I mean, it's not related at all, but in the 2 games with Burrow, they only had 10 total in 2 games. So I don't know if they're trying to do too much without Burrow or what it is, but 11 penalties in a game is something obviously you don't want. I mean, last week the Broncos had 3 more touchdowns than the Bengals had times they got past the 50-yard line. So that's not good. Obviously, they hadn't really having much of a running game. Chase Brown's averaging 2.3 yards a carry for the season. He had that 4.0 against Denver, which is kind of surprising because Denver has a really good defense too. Um, but then, again, going back to the message board things, the Bengals fans are all expecting to get blown out of the water. Some of them are saying that the networks will change to a different game at halftime. Even I mean, so it's pretty bad over there. But at least they're being pretty funny about it.
Yeah, this is not what we were expecting that we would be talking about before the season started. And I'm for one, I wish Joe Burrow was lining up over there to see a good football game. I know some people are like, well, we want the win any way possible. I'm like, I would love to see the Lions play the Bengals with Joe Burrow. It's unfortunate that that's not happening. Coach, we know this Bengals team is not what it was or what it would have been if Joe Burrow was still in there. What, from the coaching standpoint, do you expect out of a team like this when they're coming, they're welcoming a team in, but they're such a big underdog and their season has been tipped upside down just 2 weeks into the season?
Well, I think they're professionals, and they're gonna take it to it's gonna be in their heart. They're gonna say, we're professionals. We gotta act like professionals, and somehow we have to rally the troops. And this is a great game for us to upset somebody. And the Lions are coming in, and and I think that's one of the things that you're going to see. You're going to see that defensive line play well. You're going to see your offensive line play well. I think your quarterback. I think they're going to change some of the schemes. The pressures. One of the things, if we want to talk offensively, with them, let's talk about their offense and their offensive line. I went through and they had 13 sacks. Okay, there was 1 with a 3-man pressure. There were 9 with a 4-man pressure, and there were 2 with a 5-man pressure. Okay,
that they gave up sacks.
Yes, when they gave up sacks. So I'm kind of touching base. So they're going to take that to heart too. So the Lions, they're looking at the Lions. I mean, we can look at the Lions numbers all we want. We can go through and talk about, hey, they're the second best in this, and we're the second best in this, and they're the 30th worst and whatever. But these are games that are scary from a coaching standpoint, because that board that James was on, I think that was the same message board that was on the Lions after week 1. And then all of a sudden we turned it around. So I think those are things that you have to worry about. And I think, as professionals, getting paid a lot of money, they're going to come back and they're going to react, and they're going to create some problems or concerns for us. I mean, again, they got a great defensive line guy, Hendrickson, one of the best pass rushers there are. We did a great job last week, and we just have to work, like Dan Campbell said, we just have to work and do what we do and not worry about what's coming in, but our standards. And hopefully we stay on those standards this week, because this is one of those scary games.
All right, well, we're going to get into that in just a moment. We want to let you all know that this episode is brought to you by Roaster Jack Coffee out of Traverse City. They've been roasting it since 1999. Incredible blends and single origins from small farms. Check out roasterjack.com and use the code LIONS to get 20% off your next order. All right, James, Coach started talking about it, right? What are we going to expect out of the Lions here? Because Coach already talked about it, right? The message boards, everyone's picking. I mean, everyone on ESPN is going to pick the Lions to win this game, right? Just like everyone picked Baltimore to beat the Lions. So this is a big spread for a reason. But at the same time, we know, I think Aiden Hutchins said there's no such thing as a trap game in the NFL. But the way things are going right now, the Lions are suddenly in first. They're on a 3-game winning streak. They are the talk of the town again. After everybody threw us overboard after week 1, they're like building us a ship and saying, hey, set sail. So What are we expecting out of the Lions? I'm going to say this. I think kind of, Coach said, Dan Campbell was saying we got to do our thing. I think the focus for the Lions is going to be focus on fundamentals and focus on execution. Because even after they beat the Browns by 24 points, right at the end of that game, Coach Campbell said, that wasn't good enough. We have a lot to fix, but let's enjoy the win. So what are you expecting, James, out of the Lions in this game where they're 9.5-point favorites?
Yeah, I kind of expect them to dominate the game. I mean, I don't. Coach might be better to ask some of this, but I mean, I don't know. Jerry, what did you, if you were 4-0 in a high school game and facing a team that's 0-4 and really, really struggling, what do you say to your guys?
Yeah, the big thing is take care of yourself because you don't want to be on the headlines. 4-0 team loses an 0-4 team. I mean, that's the biggest thing you got to think about, and that's what Campbell's and don't read your press clippings because it means absolutely nothing if you lose the next week. And I mean, that's the biggest thing with that, you guys. You can't, you look at this and it's everything on paper. Those charts I sent you guys, we are 5-star on about 14 of them or 15 of them. They have 1 5-star, and we're the 31st. We're rated 31st in quarterback scrambles, and they're number 3 in defending quarterback scrambles. Well, we don't scramble. So, my point is, there's just so many things you have to stay on top of that and just say, and like Matt just said, I agree with what Matt said. Hey, we stalled in one possession last week because we had 2 false starts. We didn't complete the deep ball last week against a 1 high safety, which this team plays a lot. And their safety's got 2 picks this year. And they could have had a 3rd. So those are concepts. I think those are things that Dan Campbell's going to pull out and say, Battle's got 2 interceptions at safety, missed the 3rd, and Turner and Dax Hill can both man coverage you. So that's what you say to him. Hey, that safety over there's got 2 picks. How many? Oh, Joseph, you got 2, and Branch, yeah, he must be in your house. You know what I'm saying? And you're just going to develop that stream. But again, you go back to what we just said, and we have to do what we do and not worry about what they do.
Yeah, and I think one thing we have to worry about what we do is our defensive backs, because I think the Bengals are going to test the defensive backs, knowing Reed's out, and even if Arnold plays, James, he's not going to be 100%. He's still coming back from the injury. But either way, I think they're going to test the defensive backs for the Lions. So I think that's an area where the Lions are going to have to make sure they're doing something to scheme for it or just prepare for it, whether it's get more pass rush on or drop more guys into coverage or run nickel versus base. I don't know. Those are just some of my thoughts on that.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, I think they could. I mean, like Jerry was mentioning, the Bengals have given up a lot of sacks against 4-man fronts with no bringing extra pressure. So I don't know if the Lions sit there and do that or if they bring some linebackers from time to time like they've done here and there throughout the season. But I mean, the Bengals have a 2.2 second pocket time this season. That means the pocket collapses after 2.2 seconds. That's all the time that they have to throw the ball. That's not a lot. I mean, that's way below the NFL average. And 28.7% pressure rate, only 1.2 yards before contact and rushing, 2.6 yards per carry. Those are all worst or second worst in the NFL in every one of those categories. So the Lions defense has got to just be kind of licking its chops a little bit. Trap game, but they also got to be like, this is where we can make some hay, get this game maybe over and play some of our backups a little bit in the second half and move on to next week.
Yeah, go ahead, Coach.
Foot on the gas, and you can't let them hang around. You can't let T. Higgins or Chase break a big one. You can't let Brown get a big run. You can't. Those are you have to put your foot on the gas and get the doubt out of their minds. And that's the first thing I say, get the doubt out of their minds in the first quarter, and again, or with, we went back last week with the Ravens or 2 weeks ago. Remember we said that with the Ravens. And I said that the first thing is to get through the first quarter. to get through the first quarter. That's what the Bengals are saying, the exact same. Let's get through the first quarter, then let's win the second quarter. Then if if they start stacking plays and stacking opportunities, they're going to start believing. They're going to start looking in the mirror and go, "Hey, I'm an NFL football player. This team isn't very good," and they're gonna hit us in the mouth. I don't see that happening with Dan Campbell, but it's out there, and you got to worry about it.
Yeah, and limiting those explosives are the big thing, right, Coach? Because those are the big game changers, explosives and turnovers.
Mm-hmm.
James, how about you take us into that ref report? We didn't get one last week, and we saw a lot of flags on the field. I don't know if there's a correlation, but would love to maybe get something different this week.
I hope that's not the case this week, but it doesn't bode well. They got the Carl Treffers crew, which they've thrown a lot of flags this year so far. They've in 3 games this season because they've already had their bye week. Ref crews get their bye week too. They have called 35 penalties on the road teams and only 21 on the home teams.
Awesome.
So last year they were 105 on the road and 81 at home. So it's been kind of consistent that they're like that, but it's been even more severe so far this season. What they call is pretty similar to the NFL norms: offensive holding, false start, defensive pass interference, defensive holding. But what's kind of outside the norm for them is that they are averaging 5.3 offensive holding calls per game this year. The average is just a tiny bit over 3 in NFL games, 3 holding penalties. They've called 4 false starts a game. The NFL average is 2.38. So they call those a lot.
Could we get that crew in next week against Kansas City with the false start thing? Sorry to interrupt.
Yeah, they've only done 3 games, and they've called 19 more penalties than any other crew that's only done 3 games. And
wow.
They've thrown more flags than 5 crews who have done 5 games or 4 games already this season.
So you're saying we should be prepared?
Yeah, be prepared for flags.
All right. Well, let's transition. What's it going to take for the Lions to win this game, Coach?
Well, let me throw this at you. Bo Nix threw for 326 yards last week, 26.7 fantasy points for those asking. He completed 29 to 42 for 326, 2 touchdowns and an interception. Okay, here's the one thing, and this is why I'm bringing this up, is he was pressured on just 15.9% of his dropbacks, and he was 6 for 7. We know how Jared Goff is and his percentage of completions when he is not pressured. So if we can continue, we can do the same thing with our offensive line with what Denver did. We're going to be in great shape. We're going to be able to dump it. From that, I think we're going to establish the deep ball because we had a tough time last week connecting on it. And so I think that's one of the things we're going to have to do. So to win the game, no pressure on Goff. We can say run game and stuff like that. That's going to happen anyways. But I think the deep ball threat, getting some of the deep balls, even though they have a safety back that's pretty solid at 2 corners that can play bump and run. So I think that's the biggest one of those. Defensively, no splashes from Higgins or Chase. No splash plays from those two. It was funny. One of the guys in my fantasy text trading Chase. Anybody want him? Anybody want Chase in the trade market on fantasy? And I texted him back. I said, "You're going to trade him this week when he's going against a team with 2 corners that are out." But again, it was kind of a joke, but it was also the same thing that, like you said, who's going to be on him? Probably me. I think you guys said that, or one of you guys said it or wrote it down, and we're going to find out what happens. So 4-man pressures, max coverage, offense line does a great job giving them pocket, and we hit the deep ball. We're going to be successful.
All right, James, what's it going to take for the Lions to win from your perspective?
Not let the refs make this close.
Yeah.
If they can keep the yellow hankies in the refs' pockets as much as possible, the Lions should be good in this game.
All right, I'm going to put it on the secondary. Not allow those explosive plays. I think that's going to be an important thing in this game because that's going to be the area that is likely most vulnerable on this Detroit Lions team going into this week. Prediction time. James, what do you got for predictions?
I think it's going to be a blowout. Maybe it's hopeful. I wrote down 42-17 just as a throwing numbers out there, ballpark or whatever, and that Amik holds Jamar Chase under 100 yards and gets a pick.
Okay. All right. Oh, and gets a pick. All right, because my prediction was the defensive backs are going to be tested early, and someone is going to come down with an interception from the secondary. So I do see an interception happening as well. Coach, you kind of alluded to some of your predictions, but is there anyone – and again, I don't predict who's going to win or lose because you guys – I look at this Detroit Lions team and call me a homer, but on paper, I don't think there's a team we can't beat. Yeah, is Kansas City on the road and Philly on the road tough games? Is Baltimore on the road a tough game? Yes, but I don't see why we can't beat them. And so I don't pick wins or losses for that, but – that's why I went with the defensive back thing. Sorry, Coach. I started setting you up, and then I kind of went to left field. So what do you got here for a prediction? Because you started laying into them, and I want to let you get back to it.
Well, I think, and from that, just specific ones, J-Mo is going to have one big splash play. He'll have a bunch of mediocre plays, first down, stuff like that. But I think he'll have one big splash play, and we're gonna score one more point than they do.
That's all that matters, because what do you want to do this week, Coach?
1-0.
1-0. All right, final thoughts. We get out of here. James.
I don't really have anything. You were going to talk about ticket prices or something, weren't you?
I think you were. I see you got something on there about Joe Burrow going down and how that affected prices. What do you got with that?
Oh, you had something in there about ticket prices before. I figured that the ticket prices for this game would go down after the Burrow injury, but they really haven't. I think that with the Lions traveling so well, that's filtering down now to ticket prices on the road as well. I mean, this game is like over a $200 a seat for nosebleeds.
Yeah, I just looked it up right now. It's just under that. It's at 176. The two highest this week are Buffalo at home against New England and Denver at Philly. Denver at Philly is $276 a ticket. So I got to highlight the New York Giants at the New Orleans Saints, $25 a ticket is not the cheapest. If you go to Arizona, you can see the Titans play for $21 a ticket. So might even be able to get a flight in for that price. All right, Coach, any final thoughts out of you?
I missed one, and here's the final thought. Second and short, Cincinnati blitzes 40% of the time. Second and short, Cincinnati blitzes 40% of the time. That's going to be an interesting stat to watch the Lions when Monty or Gibbs rushes for 8 yards on the first carry to see how we attack that. And that's going to look into that. Just going through my mind, do we take a deep shot and then run it for the first down? So that's going to be one of the ones I'm really going to be watching that, second and shorts.
Awesome. All right. Shout out to Roaster Jack Coffee, roasted incredible beans since '99. Visit roasterjack.com. Use the code LIONS. Take 20% off your next order. James, Coach, thank you guys for so much of the insights, all the conversation. Folks, thank you for tuning in. Please tell your friends and family about the show. You can find us on social media at NTSOL Podcast on Twitter. Find us on all major streaming platforms. Would love your thoughts and reviews. You can also find us on YouTube for the video version and check out more episodes and content at notthesameoldlions.com. And until next time, stay gritty, my friends.